So, greetings, Earth Walkers, and welcome. We are now in perfect divine timing for opening for our dear brother Adi to share with us about the new cultural renaissance emerging on the planet at this time. I'm so excited to hear what you have to share. This is one of my passions, creating culture, consciously co-creating culture. And I'm really, really excited to hear about your wisdom and understanding of this from a historical and cultural perspective. So
Thank you.
can you tell me a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, your background, what brought you here today?
Yeah. Um, I was born in Jerusalem, Israel, and moved to the Silicon Valley when I was a youngster, and had a lot of depression, anxiety, all these things growing up there because the culture of the Silicon Valley was very, like, people didn't really dress like this necessarily there, and the altar didn't exactly align in the same way it does kind of here in Sedona. It was more of like everything was about superficial conformity. It was about conforming, and it was about yeah. So I grew up in a high school where there was no space for any alternative culture, and there was no space for any soul, and it was all very much materialistic, superficial. I also grew up at a time when social media was just becoming a thing. So my generation, I feel like, was like the guinea pigs of like what it's like when kids grow up and develop as teenagers, develop their identity hand in hand with social media, which has never been done before. And so I got to see from an outside perspective, kind of, because I just had that ability to see from an outside perspective what that did to the cultural environment and how deeply it kind of dissociated the youth from our souls, from the felt experience of being alive, and from the experience of what actually, who am I as a unique individual, rather than who am I as I'm perceived by the tribe and by the conformist culture that I have to look a certain way for to get enough likes on Facebook, or I have to have the grades for to get to the right school, and so yeah, I was like in the place where it's supposed to be like the height influence, like the super power of culture today. Silicon Valley, Facebook, Google, Apple.
California.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got to see how deeply that dissociated people, including myself, from their soul. We also were a school that we're supposed to be the best public school in the world, like Palo Alto High School and Gunn High School, but we happen to have like some of the highest suicide rates. So there was obviously some kind of disconnect between what's supposed to be the best, supposed to be the most progressive in terms of yeah, in terms of what culture calls progressive, and what actually is regressive for the soul.
Yeah.
And so I started having my spiritual awakening at that time because I was forced to go inwards, because I didn't have anything outside that I could hold on to, because my soul just wouldn't let me conform. So what made me an outsider at the time and made me very alone, and like, will I ever find a culture that understands me, where I can be myself in, made me forced me to go within and like into that darkness, into myself through meditation, basically. And also the internet. The internet was very helpful for finding, like, researching, like, what is it like, what is like leaving your body when you're meditating, like what is that? And then like finding out about like all these different mystical experiences and perspectives that like helped me to awaken.
So were things like that happening to you at a young age? Were you astrally traveling out of your body in meditations or lucid dreaming or
Yeah, I was having like, I definitely had some profound meditation experiences where I was like beginning to leave my body, and yeah, and yeah, different things that confirmed that there is a reality outside of what the culture has sanctioned. to be real.
Mm.
And luckily the internet helped with that. So there showed me the beauty and the good things about the internet at this time too, for sharing, other
Yeah.
perspectives and finding, information about Buddhism and Hinduism and the New Age and all these different things, like all the information.
Yeah.
But it had to come from an internal shift first in order to align to something beyond the box.
To open, to receive, and to see
Yeah.
with new eyes and different eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bless the Aquarian age has its light and its dark, like every other one
Yep.
has and will have, but there's so
Mm-hmm.
much beauty in that.
Mm-hmm.
Were you trained in meditation or spiritual practices, or did they come to you intuitively?
I had a little bit of training, but I always had this like calling to like not listen to what anyone else was saying about anything. So there was like just enough pointers that would support, but like what always seemed to be the most important thing was how do we decondition the cultural concepts. So I never subscribed to like one thing of like one way to do it. I would always like free flow and trust what was naturally unveiling through me, because I feel like this is a time right now where that's what's actually needed, is to realize that we don't need these cultural teachings. And there's lots of cultural teachings that will tell you that you don't need anything outside you, but they're still riddled in levels of dogma.
Sure.
You don't need anything outside you besides us to tell you how you don't need anything outside you.
These teachings and traditions, or this one practice, or this one kriya. If you do it perfectly for 40 days, you will get this.
Yeah,
and
my
it's like,
ADHD,
yes, I want that.
yeah, my ADHD would never let me like hold on to one thing or way of doing it.
Right.
So it became really like, how can I trust myself? Like, how can I listen to myself? Like, who am I? And that unveiled levels of freedom and connection to life that was like profound since then, and have taken me to a whole nother reality now. And along the way, allowed me to be witness to the evolution of culture that's been rapidly happening, and seeing myself as a co-creator of it, seeing myself as a vessel for creation, to create something new. But in that time, like, my purpose became, I want to help kids in high school the ways that I was, to know that there is a culture, there's like, to have content, to see an example of someone living life differently, and know that there are other ways to do it. So showing that there's possibilities, showing that it's not just one thing, because and I see that there is a movement happening, a bridging happening into a completely different culture, the one that we've all been waiting for, that's happening, and that we're all getting to steward, and it's happening faster than our cynicism might think.
Oh yeah, it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm so excited and eager to hear about how you see and perceive and understand this new cultural renaissance that we are finding ourselves in the midst of.
Yeah. Thank you. Basically, we're at the threshold jump off point where we'll look back at this time and be like, that was the thing where nothing was the same after. So, and we being alive at this time are inserted specifically at this time to be the ones to tune into our own heart and say, how do I want to shape the rest of the evolution of existence and humanity? We are in the most primed place for evolution and for renaissance and for revolution. But this revolution right now that we're in is not like, it's an evolution because what we've known so far has been like little revolutions that have like burst us just enough outside of the box of the last one to bring us to a whole new perception of experiencing reality. But there's always been just another layer of a box formed around that one. And we're at the one finally where we can pop the bubble once and for all, and where culture, which is the way that the mind is projected to filter reality, where culture finally becomes fully integrated into the heart, into the body, and into the earth. Because that's just what it does. That's because culture is actually a manifestation of nature, exploring herself, itself. And nature, at the end of the day, reclaims everything. So all the cultural blueprints that have held up the institutions and the ways of being and the ways of seeing the world that have been based on the perception of separation are all crumbling right now. Because this is that time in the evolution of the cosmos, in the evolution of time on Earth. You refer to it as the age of Aquarius that we're getting into. And there's so many prophecies and ways of seeing it, such as within the Mayan calendar. And even if you just trace back to 2012 and see the amount of change that has happened within your personal life and within our life as a collective, there's something that's rapidly shifting. And there's a lot of people out there that are seeing the opportunity and they're claiming it. You know, you can, like, big names come to mind, like Elon Musk or like Mark Zuckerberg or like Bill Gates, that are like, they see that everything is kind of up for grabs, this new territory that we're in, where all of human potential is finally at the forefront, culminating in this technological boom that we're in, where we have all these resources, and now really is the time for people who have been cultivating their inner being and their resource within nature and within the spirit within themselves to seize this opportunity, to not hold back on influencing life. Because those of us who have been working with nature and how she works, it's really important for us all to understand that nature is working through all of us and wanting us to show up for this time. So any stories that our ego has about, I'm not that big or that empowered or powerful, or I don't have that much of an influence, if you've been doing the work to cultivate some level of connection to your true being beneath the conditions you've been given, then there is so much energetic resource that life is moving through you that will reap abundance, will reap a harvest over the years to come in a way that is miraculous, intelligent, and sustainable. Like, each of our efforts is rewarded and supported by all of life, beyond what we could ever know, especially if we know that. So what I'm saying is, if you are connected right now, you are way more powerful than someone who doesn't understand that we are all connected. And even if it seems like the tides have been turned, for the past eras, wherein those who are the least connected to actual unity have been the most powerful, now there is a complete rebalancing happening, because constructs of separation can't sustain any longer, because there's just no more time within nature. There's a time when everything has to dissolve back into her. And that goes for all our perceptions of separation.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I so relate. And one of the deepest transmissions that I remember learning, I really resonate with your journey and your story, having grown up in a culture that I didn't feel a part of and I didn't relate to, and I couldn't quite figure out who I was or where I was and how to be that. And so one of the deepest things that came up for me was that culture rises from the earth. Or perhaps when we're in right relationship and harmony with all of the universe, we're informed here and from the heavens, right? Which is that celestial knowing of who we are. And the theme of heaven and earth, it's been big for me. I keep hearing it. I love all these words that keep circulating just since I've been here. But two really powerful questions came up. One, how do we decondition? And two, how do we get in tune? And like, what are some tools that you use and ways that you do that? Because certainly even along the path, there's more conditioning that rises to clear. There's more needing to be able to return to our center. And so I'm curious your thoughts and your practices around that.
Thank you. It's a really good question. So one of the, for deconditioning, there's this kind of fire. There's this like fire of, you can see it a lot in the social justice movement, where there's this fire of like, we've been doing it so bad and like this is all wrong, this is all bad. So fire is really important for deconditioning. But the fire has to be used, it's kind of like, the word healthy detachment comes up, where there has to come a breaking point in all of our lives where we become really comfortable with this energy of fire, and rather than letting it burn us out and burn each other, we let it fuel our fury of just having fucking enough with anything, anyone. Like, there has to be an okayness with going into and finding sanctuary within our infinite self and unhooking from the collective codependency, the cultural enmeshment, where we are somehow always kind of trying to attune to the collective harmony. We can't actually find the true harmony or the true connection and the unity with the earth and with the heart of humanity unless we first claim our individuality. And that comes with getting in touch with our power and getting in touch with the part of us that, like, giving ourselves, having the audacity to say, I am worthy of simply being myself and simply doing what feels good for me, and fuck what anyone thinks about it.
Yes.
There has to be an aspect of that.
Yeah.
Because only when we own our actual power and our individuality can we show up in balance and in love and in authenticity with the way that life wants to move through us. But we have to claim that freedom for ourselves and also see how short of our life is. Like, putting death into perspective, one day we'll be dead, and what will really matter? Most of our thoughts won't, most of our ideas, so that turns on this radical fire of like, what can I do now to contribute to the earth? And if you study the patterns of evolution, change makers are often not recognized until after they die. So knowing that whatever you sacrifice by just putting yourself out there and getting over your fears and getting over your ideas of how small you are, trusting that there is a universal force moving through you, and that everything you do in service to that, as it authentically is inspired through you, will manifest in goodness. It just has to be a living daily devotion to that radical lifestyle, which transcends being really okay with being in the discomfort of the world, like kind of being one step ahead of the world or one step beyond the world, and getting really comfortable with being all alone in yourself. And being in the emptiness and in the death and in the womb of the darkness of, like, I don't know, being really okay with that. And because that's where creation comes through. So we have to be okay with being alone, being different, and we have to sacrifice ourselves, the idea of what image we have to uphold for the collective in order to actually contribute to the collective in a long-term scale of things. Yeah.
Whew.
That's some. We have like 2 more minutes,
Yeah.
so I'm just trying to like.
Beautiful. No, I love it. I mean, you're basically outlining the process of alchemy and transmutation, right? We separate the parts, then we purify them. We have to burn them. We must experience the blackness to purify to the white or the pure, and to not just use black and white, but rather are the yin or yang or the earthly into the celestial, and then
There's a unification that needs to happen. Yeah, it's like unifying our power and our darkness, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
with the water and with the compassion and with the care. And we have to become really comfortable with being in the paradox in between the past and the future and the this and the that, because this is a time where all the polarities get to merge through us. And yeah, becoming comfortable with not black and white thinking. I love how you said that, because in the world, as you look at culture, there's like a cultural war right now, a clashing between my side versus your side, right versus left, blue versus red. And we have to be able to hold that all perspectives are part of the yin yang within nature, and that from within that something new is emerging. This is a synergy happening. They're not actually opposites. They're actually the lovers that give birth to the new, and right now that is happening within us all. There's a new culture, a new stage of human evolution being birthed through us when we no longer see the polarities to be fragmented within us and no longer see ourselves to be separate from the world. And yeah, it's going to be a really beautiful rainbow baby that we all make together.
Yeah.
And it's happening within us. Yeah.
Rainbow unicorn babies.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Rainbow unicorn babies, ladies and gentlemen.
Towards rainbow unicorn, we lost it was taken away from us, but there is a rainbow unicorn somewhere. Oh, it's here. Oh, is that a what is this? Is it a dragon egg? Because that's what I think it is.
No, actually, so as I've come to understand, a dragon and a unicorn, and believe it or not, a fairy, all three of them came together and procreated that. And it's cracking.
I see that.
It's cracking.
It's beginning.
Yeah, it's cracking. The new world is about to be born. The new old.
Yeah, and the reason it's a rainbow is because it's an integration of all the colors, right? It's not black and white thinking. It's rainbow thinking. It's rainbow Khala. Shabbat
Oh my God.
Shabbat Shemad Love and Love.
Your mom. Thank you, Mom. Oh my goddess.
Yeah.
It's a rainbow unicorn.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. I don't remember the American version, but I know the Hebrew one. Amen.
Elaine, will you come up here? Mother Greenberg. So, yeah, it is. Is there?
So it's integrating the old cultures and bringing through something new that simultaneously transcends the lines.
So my mother here, Elaine.
Oh.
Do you want to sit with Adioni, or with Zoe, wherever?
You don't want to be on stage.
And she asked, like a good Jewish mother does, if we wanted challah to be made for tonight. And I said, sure, but can we make it what I'll call it? Can we make a sovereignty challah? So I've been teaching the archetypes associated with what we have been talking about, what we believe are the core ingredients. So what are the core ingredients to create the global culture of peace that we're talking about? So I asked if we could create a challah that would integrate the warrior, the red, the healer, the blue, the peace tender, the white, the yellow, the sovereign, and the mix in there as well, the twin of the yellow is the purple. And so this is a sovereignty challah, and I have a dream that this becomes a tradition. I mean, look at these. These are gorgeous.
I much prefer to the codependency challah.
Right. I mean, they're gorgeous, and so Yeah, so just the weaving of the tapestry of the into the fifth dimension of the five colors, the sacred ingredients that allow for our star, the five directions, to shine and to be whole.
Amen.
All right.
Yeah.
With that, I don't know what just happened.